Hello, everybody. Happy Monday to you. It is week 2 of the term. Congratulations on surviving the first week of History 791. You're doing well. If your discussion board posts that you submitted last week are accurate, you're all making good progress on the capstones, and I think you're going to be in a good position here. I've read a couple of the project proposals that you submitted last week and over the weekend, and I'll get to the rest over the next couple of days. I like what I've seen so far. There are a lot of really cool capstone topics that you guys are tackling, and I will post a list of those probably in this same announcement that you're looking at right now, because I just want everyone to see kind of the broad range of topics that people are tackling in this class. And I'm really excited about that. Some of these I know a lot about, some of them I don't know much about. So I'm looking forward to learning something new from all of you. That's one of the reasons I like teaching this class, is I get to learn about some really cool things from you guys. So this week, I want you to focus only on those projects. There is nothing for you to turn into me for grading. This announcement is pretty much all we're doing this week. I will be around if you have any questions or comments, though, or concerns. Feel free to send me an email, give me a call, whatever you like. If you have some piece of writing that you would like me to take a look at, there is a Dropbox in Module 2 on Brightspace called Optional Check-In, where you can upload whatever you have so far that you'd like me to take a look at. It could be an outline, a paragraph, a sentence, a page, an entire draft, whatever you have. I'll take a look at it, and I will get back to you as soon as I can with some feedback. And then you can incorporate that feedback into future drafts and all of that. So take advantage of that. We will have the option of that check-in every week in the term. So feel free to send me updates so that I can help you out as necessary. So as long as I have you here, I do want to talk a bit about the capstone itself. A lot of you sent me questions last week asking about specific aspects of the capstone, and I figure I might as well talk about the whole thing here and now with everybody here in the same place. So the capstone is a research project where you will base conclusions on primary source research. You will include some historiography in the introduction to tell the reader where your work fits with the existing literature. But the bulk of your project is going to make a historical argument based on those primary sources. That argument that you make must be new, and it must be original. There is no point in reinventing the wheel or making the same argument that another historian has already made. That's kind of pointless. That other historian already did it. Why do you need to do it? Your project needs to fill a gap in our collective understanding of a historical topic. And you've been hearing about gaps throughout your entire program, so hopefully you have a good idea what we mean by that. But if you don't, send me an email. We can talk about it. Now, the final capstone will be between 75 and 100 pages. At least that's the assigned page length. That's the project itself. Those numbers do not include stuff like table of contents and the introduction. It does include start over. The project, that page number includes the introduction, the body of the project, and the conclusion. It does not include the front matter, stuff like the table of contents, dedication, abstract. It doesn't count that stuff. It also does not count the bibliography that you have at the end of it or any of the appendices that you post. We'll talk more later in the term about appendices and all of that. But 75 to 100 pages of the body of the paper. Now, those numbers are not absolute. I'm not going to count pages and base your grade on your page count. Probably around half of students in our program go beyond the 100-page mark, and that's fine. I'm not going to stop reading at page 100. Since I have 12 of these to get through, I ask you to keep that in mind. Don't submit a 500-page thesis. That's just going to be difficult. But, if you go over 100 pages, that's fine. Now, I'm a bit more of a stickler for the 75-page minimum. I'm not going to count. So if you come up with 71 pages of well-argued material, there's no need to fill in those remaining 4 pages with just filler. That should be fine. If you come in at 50 pages or 60 pages, then I'm going to be a bit more concerned. That's there's probably an indication there that either your research topic wasn't broad enough and you might need to expand it a bit to find more stuff to say, or you're not developing some part of it enough. Anyway, we can talk about that. So if you get stuck at 50, 60 pages and you just can't think of anything else to say, let me know. We can talk about it. Okay. Now, 75 pages sounds like a lot when you're looking at a blank screen, but thankfully you shouldn't be looking at a blank screen. You submitted 12 to 15-ish pages of work to me in the form of the project proposal last week and to your History 790 class. That's your starting point. The proposal is basically the introduction to your project. If you did your proposal correctly, then you've already summarized your argument, at least as of whatever your argument is right now. You've already situated your work within the larger body of literature through a historiographical analysis. You've already introduced your major source bases, and you've already laid out a summary of the chapters that you're going to write. That's everything you need in an introduction. You'll need to tweak a few things. You'll change any first-person language to third-person language. You might rearrange a few things to make it flow better with the rest of your paper, but that's all going to happen later. So for now, I suggest that you just paste your proposal into the introduction section of the Capstone template I provided to you in an earlier announcement. Then you can start creating outlines for each chapter. Then, pick a chapter outline that you want to tackle first. You don't need to write this thing from front to back, unless that's your style. If that's your preference, fine. I know some people who write best by just starting at the beginning and working their way all the way to the end. That's not my style. I don't work that way. I always pick a spot kind of in the middle, seemingly at random, but it's usually the spot that I feel like I know the best, and I start with that. And then I just kind of expand out from there. I'll expand up towards the front and back towards the end. You don't have to do it from front to back. You can do it in whatever order you want. It's whatever your own personal preference is. I personally tend to leave the conclusion and the introduction for last. That way I'm sure that the introduction and the conclusion actually match the stuff that I'm saying in the rest of the paper. Otherwise, if you do your introduction first and then write the body, you may veer completely off topic, and then you have to go back and fix the introduction. So anyway, I keep the introduction and conclusion for last. You can do it however you prefer. Okay, and then a few words about sources. Many of you asked questions about these. You will use secondary sources here to establish context and to possibly fill in the gaps between primary sources. And you'll use primary sources for the historiography part in the introduction, obviously. But your project cannot be based entirely on secondary sources. Relying on secondary sources would make for a really long historiography paper or a really long encyclopedia entry, and that is not what we're going for here. We're going for some original historical research. And this is a history paper. And history papers rely on the analysis and interpretation of primary sources. That's what we do as historians. And those primary sources need to come from as many different places as possible. Many of you will find relevant primary sources online through library searches or Google searches, and that's great. However, you're not going to find all sources that way. You cannot rely only on online primary sources. You have to visit relevant physical archives, museums, libraries, historical societies, etc. Most places only digitize a very small number of their primary sources and their holdings. So if you want to cover all your bases, you need to go find relevant physical institutions that have primary sources and bring those into your document. Some of you might be able to get away with doing it online only, but that's not going to be very many of you. You're going to have to find offline primary sources. And if you have questions about that, again, let me know, and we can talk about that, and hopefully I can give you some ideas. All right, I think that stuff covers most of the common questions that you sent last week. Let me know if I missed anything. Please get in touch if you have any additional questions or concerns. I would also appreciate it if you would post your questions to the general questions discussion board so that other students can see my answers there. If your question is very specific or personal to you, then obviously send me an email. But if it's something that is kind of general that the rest of the class would benefit from, please post it to the general questions board. Beyond that, I hope you have a productive week, and we will catch up again next week. Bye.